Welcome to More Than a Casserole, a podcast dedicated to helping empower, encourage, and engage people to have more comfortable conversations about death and giving you the support you need to help provide holistic support to those who are going through the dying process. I'm your host, Michael Carpenter, and I'm here with my co-host, Sonya Koenig, and Pastor Frazier with Texas Doula Movement. Excited to have another podcast today, guys.
All right, thank you.
So why don't y'all explain what is Texas Doula Movement and what is a doula for those who don't know?
Well, my name is Sonya, and I am the CEO and founder of Texas Doula Movement. At Texas Doula Movement, we teach and train individuals and organizations and businesses on how they can give holistic support to people that are going through the dying process and to their families. It is very important to us that people understand that they don't have to fear death, because death is a part of life. And if you can prepare for your life, you can also prepare for your death. And so what we do is we teach people, we teach churches, we teach organizations on how they can work with those that are dying and how they can help individuals get their end-of-life affairs in order.
And I am Pastor Emma Jane. I'm the outreach pastor for Whole Life Christian Church, West San Antonio. And I have, over 40 years experience working with those that are going through the dying process. And as the education director for Texas Doula Movement, I help in the education, the training, the empowerment, the engagement of those that are really trying to understand and feel comfortable talking about the death experience, and those that are going through it and their family members. And we have found that over the years that many have said they're just, especially pastors and church leaders, they're not prepared, they're not educated, they don't feel comfortable talking about death and talking about the dying experience, or helping those going through the dying experience, even though they're well aware that Jesus taught and prepared his disciples for his death. He told them beforehand that this is the last meal I'll have with you, or he told them or prepared them, I'm going away to prepare a place for you. So they knew that he was going to die. We all know that we are going to die. We just need to be comfortable talking about it and making preparations so that the family we leave behind won't have to struggle like my family did when my dad died. When my mother died, my dad was there, could give us all the information that we needed. But when my dad died, we didn't have the information. Well, who do we call? Who does he want to know? Where are the insurance policies? Who has the car? Who does the house go to? Those were things we didn't know about. We didn't know that my dad was a supervisor. We knew he worked. We didn't know he was a supervisor. We didn't know about the fact that he really wanted to be in the military, but because of his race, because of his age and the times, he couldn't be, but he was in civil service. Not like civil service now. Back then, civil service was you took care of the parks and all that kind of stuff. But it was considered military, but not official military. Oh, wow. We didn't know all of that about my dad. We just kind of got a piece here, got a piece there. So when it was time for the obituary, we didn't know what to do. We didn't know what to put in there, or who to contact, or who he wanted to do the officiating and all that. So with Texas Doula Movement, we try to help people have all that in place so that their family can grieve. The grieving process takes time. Everybody's affected differently. But as the person that is leaving this earth, you can take that load off your family if you have all your affairs in order, so that they'll know what bank account, and who gets the money, and how much money is in the bank account, who has the mortgage on the house, or is the house paid for? We don't always tell our family members those kind of things, and then they need to know. They need to know that if all of this goes to court, you're going to pay for that, even if you have a will. If you don't have something specific in writing, it's going to cost you. You're going to have to go to court. And that means it's going to take a long time. And then you got to find all the paperwork. And then you got the one that you left out. And then that one can sue you because you left them out. So you need to have all of that in writing. That's what we teach in preparing people to go through the dying process.
So on this episode, in kind of reference to that, we're going to stand on business today. We're going to take care of the 5 documents that you don't want to forget, that people easily forget, and that will cost them thousands of dollars or make the dying process really stressful. So we're going to talk about those 5 documents. So Sonya, it's going to be your show today. You're the expert on these. So let's start 1 through 5. What are the documents? And let's break them down. Where can people get them? How can they find them? How can they make sure their family has these documents as they prepare to transition?
Okay, but before we begin, I want to set out a disclaimer. I am not an attorney. So I am going to share some documents with you that are very important, but I do advise you to seek counsel from an attorney. But now I'm going to tell you what qualifies me to be able to share these with you. I have been not only an end-of-life doula for 30 plus years, I am also a paralegal, a retired paralegal now, and I have a degree as a paralegal. I went to school, got my training and everything, and I have been a paralegal for over 20 years. And when I was a paralegal, one of the things that my main job was estate planning. I worked with individuals that were dying, that were not dying at the time. I helped them to get their estate planning done. And so there are a lot of documents involved in estate planning and getting your end-of-life affairs in order, which would be like your will. We're not going to talk about the will today because that is something you need to sit down and talk with your attorney about. Doing your trust, that is something you need to sit down and talk to your attorney about. But what I am going to share with you today are 5 important documents that you need to make sure, not consider having, but make sure you have for your end of life. And the first one is your medical power of attorney. We call that the MPOA. That's your medical power of attorney. And your medical power of attorney. Now, let me back up. Now, every state is different. I'm going to give you some general documents that you would need in every state. But every state is different on how these documents are prepared. So if you live outside of Texas, because we're in Texas, so I'm dealing with Texas documents. So whatever state you're in, you need to do your research and find out how those documents are prepared. You don't necessarily have to have an attorney to help you prepare those documents, but it is advisable. Now, because my paralegal is my background, when right after my husband and I got married, a week after we were married, we sat down and we got our end-of-life affairs in order. We got all of our documents together. I've been married 23 years, going on 24, so we have our documents together. It's always a good idea to every year or two to go back and check your documents, make sure everything is A-okay and it's the same. If there's changes, make some changes, okay? And so, as I was saying earlier, the medical power of attorney. This document helps you make the decision of who you want to make medical decisions for you if you can't make the decision for yourself. There are a lot of people that an accident might happen. You may not have a terminal illness, but you might be in an accident and you're in a coma and you can't make the decision on what kind of treatments to be done on you. And so if you don't choose, then the hospital is going to make the decision. You don't want the doctors making the decision. You don't know that doctor. Well, maybe you do. It might be a cousin. But if you don't know them, you don't want them making a decision for you. You want somebody that you have chosen to make that decision on who will handle your medical affairs, who will make these decisions for you that you can't make. And that's called the medical power of attorney. That's where you appoint a healthcare proxy. The healthcare proxy is the person that you have chosen, that you trust, that you have talked to. Not just anybody, but someone that you have talked to on what you want to happen if you can't make decisions for yourself. You want to make sure you choose at least 2 people because you want to have a main person and you want to have an alternate person. It doesn't matter if you have a terminal illness or not. This is something that's very important, and it doesn't matter how old you are. If you are 18 years or older, you need to have a medical power of attorney. I have 2 boys, and my boys are both in the military. And before they even went into the military, because they know this is what mama does, I told them, look, you need to make a decision on if something happened to you, who's going to make medical choices for you. Okay. And so I strongly advise, if you don't do any other document, do a medical power of attorney so that you can choose who makes decisions for you. The second thing would be your living will, which is also your directive to physician. It tells your doctor or a medical person that if you're in a coma or if something happens to you, you have made the decision if you want them to take heroic measures to keep you alive. Some people, they want that. They want you to do CPR on them, and some people do not. I have an aunt, my great aunt that I love dearly, my Aunt Ethel. She passed away about a month or 2 ago, and she was 94 years old or 95 years old. And she said that she didn't want anybody cracking her ribs. If she dies, don't try to do CPR on her to bring her back. So she made the decision that she didn't want CPR. So when her time came, nobody performed CPR on her. That is a very, very important document, because if you don't, you're going to have people doing CPR on you. You're going to be hooked up to a machine that's going to breathe for you. And you may not want that, because some people have said, hey, when I go, let me go. My mama has said, when her time comes, her time comes. Don't be doing anything to try to keep her there. Don't be giving her artificial foods to keep her alive. Don't be letting a machine breathe for her. If God did not choose for her to breathe on her own, let her go. So you want to make sure you have your directive to physician prepared and you're out of hospital. And all these documents, talk with your doctor. Sit down and talk with your doctor and go over them with your doctor so that your doctor knows this is the choice that you have made. You want to make sure you keep all of the documents that I'm going to go over with you today. Make sure you keep all of those documents on hand, because if you ever have to go to the hospital for any surgeries or anything, they're going to ask you for that. They're going to ask you if you have your medical power of attorney. They're going to ask you, do you have your directive to physician? Your do not resuscitates. They're going to ask you for all of that. So make sure you have that on hand. The out of hospital DNR, that's the OHDNR is what we call it. And the out of hospital DNR is very important to have for you at home, especially if you are someone that's on hospice. Because if you're at home and something happens and 911 gets called, if the medical people, the EMS rather, the paramedics, if they don't know that you do not want to be resuscitated, they're going to proceed with trying to resuscitate you. They're going to proceed with trying to do something to keep you alive. Say you were out riding your bicycle and you got hit by a car and you've had an accident. I have seen people get tattooed on their chests, no, do not resuscitate. So that is their DNR that they're telling the medical people, don't do anything to try to save my life. Let me go. So an out of hospital DNR is important. Some people carry it in their car. I've talked to a lot of seniors that have carried that document in their car so that if they're ever in a car accident or something happens and they're not at home, if you look in their glove compartment, there goes their out of hospital DNR. It lets the paramedics know, don't do anything to try to save my life. Okay. And the other document is called the Medical Order of Scope of Practice, or the MOST. And all these documents, again, make sure you go over it with your doctor. With the most, you go over that document with your doctor. You sit down with your doctor. It says that you don't want to be resuscitated. You don't want to be on a machine. You don't want to be artificially fed. It gives instructions. And it also tells who your healthcare proxy is. And you go over that document with your doctor, and your doctor signs it and you sign it. And you both have to sign it in front of a notary. And it's just a document to have on hand. If you're on hospice or a family member or friend is on hospice, that is a document that you want to have close at hand. And then the HIPAA. The HIPAA document is so important because if you don't have it, then they can't talk to, the doctors cannot talk to your family or your friends or whomever you have chosen. They cannot talk to them about your medical situation, especially if you're on hospice. If you have a HIPAA and you sign that HIPAA document, it makes it so that they can discuss your situation with your family member or your friends or whomever you have put on there. And so with these 5 documents, make sure, I don't care if you are terminally ill. I don't care if you're healthy. I don't care if you don't plan on dying tomorrow, because you don't know when you're going to die. But these are documents that you need to have. It doesn't matter if you're 50 years old, if you're 80 years old, if you're 20 years old, if you're 30 years old, you need to have these documents. It's not being morbid. I talked to my nephew one time when I don't even know how old he was. I think he was in his early 20s. And I sat down with him and I said, sweetheart, do you have your medical documents, your documents together for end of life? He's like, oh, auntie, I'm not going to die. I'm 20 years old. There's nothing going to happen to me. I said, boy, you can walk out the door and drop dead. Or you can walk outside and get hit by a car. And he felt it was being morbid. I'm like, sweetheart, that's not being morbid. That's preparing. Do you want somebody else making decisions for your medical care? Or do you want someone that you have chosen? So I know, I'm sure you probably can see my passion on this. And that is because I have seen so many incidents of people that did not have these documents. And there's people making decisions for them that they didn't want. There's people that's being hooked up to machines that didn't want to be hooked up to a machine. There's people that, you can tell my mom what's going on with my situation. Well, you didn't sign a HIPAA so your mama can know. So the doctors legally cannot talk to your mama.
Right.
So if you don't do anything else, if you don't sit down and get your will together, if you don't sit down and get your trust together, get your medical power of attorney together, get your living will, which is your directive to physician, your out-of-hospital DNR, your medical order scope of practice, and get your HIPAA done. It doesn't matter what age you are, as long as you're 18, get that done.
So where would you start off first? Is that a conversation that you call your doctor or an attorney to get these documents, or can you get them online? What are kind of the next steps?
You can get them online. You can... I'm going to tell you as they call it, the dummies way. The easy way is just type in end of life documents needed. You don't have to be, think of, what is it called? Or how do I do it? Just type in end of life documents needed, or documents I need if I'm going to die. And you will get a lot of different searches that will tell you, you need this document, you need that document. And they'll even tell you how you can get a hold of those documents.
Are there typically a cost associated with these?
Yeah, there are some organizations that, or some websites where you got to pay for them and you can fill them out online, but there are also some free ones. You can get these documents free online, or you can go to your attorney and talk to your attorney. But you can get access to these documents free online where you don't have to pay a lot of money for it. You can type in medical power of attorney or healthcare proxy free, and you'll get a free PDF document. You can type in living will or directive to physician free template, and you'll find it online. OHDNR, out of hospital DNR, free. You can get it. Medical order scope of practice, free. In some states, it's POST instead of MOST, but they're both the same. But you can find these free documents online.
So So once you go get these free documents, you then go take them to the hospital, or kind of what do you do with them? For example, the medical power of attorney, do you turn that into a doctor?
You can keep it now. Remember this, with your medical power of attorney, you do have to have a witness, 2 witnesses to see you sign it, or you can have a notary. You don't have to have the witnesses. You can just sign it with a notary seeing you sign, because all of these are legal documents, and you do have to make sure you have them. If you can take them to the hospital, but you don't have to. But have them on so when you need them, you have them available. Always make sure your doctor has a copy of these documents. Take them to your doctor. My doctor has a copy of the documents. Your doctor should be asking you, do you have a medical power of attorney? If your doctor is not asking you that, then you need to tell him, hey, here's my medical power of attorney. But your doctors should be asking you, do you have those documents?
Okay. Good stuff. Okay.
And could I add, especially for this, the medical order for scope of practice, do some research and find out the different kind of things that can happen. Most people don't know that if you're getting CPR, you can get cracked ribs. They don't understand that. But you need to know that. You can be bruised up. You're going to be sore when they get through, if they have to do it for a prolonged length of time or whatever. Most people don't know that dialysis is considered one of those things that prolongs life. Do you want to be on dialysis? So you need to check and find these things out. That intubation, then you need to find out what that entails. I had a friend that had that intubation, and she was terrified when she woke up. They usually take it out before you wake up. But she woke up and she was terrified because she couldn't breathe. The purpose of it is to breathe for you. You need to find out how people that have had these things done, what is their response to them? How did they feel about them? Prolonging your life with these type of things, these type of tools are good if you're going to have a life. But what if the prognosis is, even with these tools being used, you're still going to die? Because we can't cure whatever.
Right.
Do you want to go through that expense, go through that uncomfortableness, or however you want to term it? Do you want to go through that? And the doctor said you're going to die anyway.
Yeah, something that I think about is, I think one of the leading causes for bankruptcy is medical expenses, right? And so these procedures sometimes aren't, they're not cheap, right?
Oh, they're not.
So thinking about the costs associated, if they were to prolong your life for a couple more weeks or a couple more days, that's still incurring a cost. So, if for some people they have that taken care of, right? They have insurance policies, or they have, savings funds for that, right? But if you're someone who doesn't have that or doesn't have a plan for that, those are the things that you should consider in making that decision, along with some of the things you just said. So, I think it's important to say this is. These are opinions being stated here. Like Sonya said, this is not medical advice. This isn't legal advice. These are things that everyone has to consider for themselves, right? Everyone's, you may be okay. Maybe the reasons that Pastor Frazier just said about, incubation, maybe those things that you're not worried about. You're like, well, I'm not worried about that. Those are things that if that is what you think, you at least need to understand what it is what you think. You need to have the conversation, right?
I was really surprised when because I had to go through the training for all of this, when they said that dialysis was one of the things I need to consider. Do I want to be on dialysis? Do I want to be on a feeding tube? I thought that was something that came natural. And I did not know that the EMR, they are obligated to try to resuscitate you. If they come to your house and you're non-responsive, your heart to stop beating, they are obligated to try to bring you back to life. But then when you wake up, your ribs are broken, you're all bruised up and in pain. Is that what you want? And when they told me all that, I thought, oh no, I don't want all that. If God says it's my time, it's my time. So those are things that you really need to think about and do some research on because you just don't know.
Right.
You don't know.
Like I'm going to, because I know I'm probably going to pronounce some of these wrong. So I'm going to tell you for your out of hospital DNR, these are some resuscitation measures specifically that are listed in your out of hospital DNR that you have to make a decision of if you want or not. There's CPR, which is the cardiopulmonary resuscitation, advanced airway management, defibrillation, artificial ventilations, and transcutaneous cardiac pacing. Now, do you want those things done or do you not want those things done? So when CPR or when EMS shows up at your house, if you don't have these things marked on your out-of-hospital DNR, they may do one of these things, but you may not want that. So that's why it is very important to have your out-of-hospital DNR completed. And it doesn't matter what situation you're in, because you may be fine. You may not be terminally ill. You may be healthy. We had an uncle that passed away and nobody knew anything was wrong with him. He was at the gym, working out at the gym, and he died while he was working out. Nobody knew anything was wrong. So you don't know what situation you may be in. You want to be prepared.
Yeah, that's good. Well, this episode wasn't meant to scare you. We were very truthful and very upfront about some of the things that you have to consider. And so we want you to feel empowered. And so we don't want there to be fear. And so, we pray as you're listening to this that you feel informed, that you feel empowered, and that you feel that you have the necessary steps to engage and really think seriously about what you want your end of life to look like, no matter whether you know it's coming or if you don't. So thank you, ladies, for this really informative information. And if you're watching this and you think of someone, hey, send this to a family member, send this to a friend, even if they're perfectly healthy, right? Yes. This is your way of saying, hey, I love you, and I just want you to listen to this information. And we hope that you take action. So thank y'all, and we'll see you next time.